All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Bash is live on 97.3 ESPN, and the draft is in the books. And, one of the guys that many people were intrigued by and targeting for the 76ers. I know a lot of our listeners were texting in about Matisse Thybulle. Well, guess what? He is a member of the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers trade up to get Matisse, and he is now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline, a member of the Philadelphia 76ers. Matisse, welcome and congratulations. You are now a member of the NBA's Philadelphia 76ers. That's got to be pretty cool.
It still doesn't even sound real, but thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Doesn't sound real. You were out at the University of Washington, which is not really known as a basketball powerhouse, but you guys kind of had a resurgence the last couple of years, and kind of intrigued about how you ended up out at Washington, which is, not known to be a basketball powerhouse.
I grew up in Seattle for the most part, and so in the past, UW was University of Washington was a pretty good basketball school, and they had a lot of guys go to the league, and just so growing up watching that, I always wanted to be a part of that.
So that's pretty cool. Like a guy who's from that area wanted to stay home and help out the home, university. And you guys had a really good season last year, and you were a guy that really spearhead that defense, which is, the calling card for Washington with the 2-3 zone. And just talk a little bit about your experiences in playing out there in terms of the style of play and how you think that will translate into today's NBA, which has really turned into a three-point, transition defensive, minded game.
No, it's funny you say, yeah. I think that fit that role pretty well. Transitions where a lot of players had the most fun. I know I'm the same way, and the easiest way to get in transitions is like forcing turnovers, and that's something I think that I'm pretty good at. And just what I've been able to do in college, I'm excited to be able to bring that to this level.
Yeah, now I know the coach, Mike Hopkins, was a Syracuse assistant, so that 2-3 defense is really something. Was there a time there, though, where you thought maybe this isn't for me? Because obviously in the NBA, it's such a man-to-man game, and there's a lot of people saying, well, how is that going to translate? Was that something that you thought about was, hey, maybe I want to go to a place where I can continue? I've heard you say in previous stuff that, hey, I played man-to-man, and don't worry, it's not going to be a problem in transition. But was it something that you were thinking about when you were at Washington?
Initially, yeah, because I played man my whole life, and then this guy comes in and tells me we're going to play a zone, and for me, in my head, and for most kids growing up, zones were for the teams that weren't really good enough to guard anyone, so they just kind of junked together some zone to try and confuse guys or just force teams to shoot threes. And so initially I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but after a while, once we got the hang of it, I fell in love with the zone. I was obviously able to be pretty successful in it, but it definitely took a little bit. But it's safe to say I'm excited to get back to playing man.
All right, now let's get people excited. Matisse Thybulle is our guest, and he is the two-time Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, all-time conference leader in steals, and that's not anything to throw anything at because you passed Gary Payton, who was pretty darn good, the first Pac-12 player in history to have 2 100-steal seasons. So obviously people should be excited about your defense. And in the NBA, do you see yourself getting in passing lanes, out in transition, doing that kind of stuff? Is that kind of how you envision your game as you kind of evolve as an offensive player?
Without a doubt. Like I said, that's what I love to do, is just being able to force turnovers and play in transition. And I've watched Philly for the past few years, and it seems like they're pretty good at once they get into transition. So being able to try and force more opportunities for that is pretty exciting.
All right, so let's look back at a couple of years ago. You shot 40% from three in college as a sophomore, averaged 10 points a game. That number has dipped a little bit. Is that an area where you see yourself in the NBA improving on, shooting the three, or do you see yourself more as putting the ball on the floor, taking the ball to the basket? Where do you see your offensive game in the NBA level?
3-point shooting is always something that I've been confident in, and I think this is something that's going to translate. And then just being able to put it down in transition and get above the rim as much as I can. I think that's going to be a lot of stuff that I try to do early.
Matisse Thybulle's with us, the Sixers pick, number 20 overall. What was the process like? I know it's different for everybody, but the combine, it happens so fast. But for the NBA fan, it happens fast. It's like the finals were last week, and then the draft is 4 days later. But you guys have been really going through this since mid-March, where you got to start going on this journey. Yeah. What has that been like, with the combines and meeting teams and answering probably bizarre questions?
It's been interesting, and like you said, everyone's process is different. So mine's been a little different than most. I didn't work out with many teams. Philly showed interest early, and we were really excited about that because it was one of the franchises that, just coming out of college, I knew I would really want to be a part of if I had the opportunity to, and just being able to grow that relationship early throughout the draft process was crucial, and we were able to develop a good enough relationship to where I didn't feel the need to work out for other teams or go to the combine, and I ended up here.
And it's interesting because there was a lot of people, I think literally when the draft process started and the Sixers were in the 24 spot, it was like, oh, Thybulle, perfect. That's the fit right there. That's the guy. It almost seemed like, 50% of mock drafts, for take whatever they're worth, had your name in there. So it seemed like it was a really good fit. What about, seeing Matisse Thybulle on the floor with Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid? We know there's some other guys who are free agents right now, but those two guys right there, how do you see your game fitting in with those two players?
And those two alone, they're incredibly talented players, and Ben being such a good passer and just point forward, like being able to control the ball, control the game. I feel like I'll be a good compliment to him just around the 3-point line, and then just being able to be a distraction for guys guarding Joel down there in the post. I think can help them, and like I said before, getting steals to help them get out in transition, I think will be really exciting.
Yeah, and of course, Zaire Smith, who was the pick last year, similar, very defensive-minded guy, working on his offensive game. Should be kind of intriguing to see how it all comes together. Matisse Thybulle, and obviously you're going to be in Philly now. This is going to be a little bit of a change, right? From being out there in Seattle, West Coast, coming over to the East Coast. The reputation of Philly, what have you heard?
I mean, I've heard nothing but great things about the fans. I mean, these guys love hard, they're passionate, and I can't wait to get in the Philly jersey and have them cheer me on.
Now, let me ask you this: you said that you lived out in Seattle. I guess did you live out there your whole life? Were you out there when the Sonics were there at all?
Yeah. So when we moved, I was born in Arizona, and then right after I was born, we moved to Sydney, Australia, and I lived out there for 4 years, and then when we moved to Seattle, the Sonics, we had a couple of years still with the Sonics before they left.
Oh, all right. So we got to see a little bit of the Sonics as they were out there. And Sydney, Australia, this seems like the Sixers have a pipeline to Australia with Brett Brown, Simmons, and even Jonah Bolden was out there for a while. But I guess that was when you were really young?
Yeah, we moved back over here in like 3rd or 4th grade. And I still remember a good part of being out in Australia, which is pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Beautiful place, by the way. Sydney, Australia. Awesome. Matisse Thybulle, and, of course, before we let you roll here, the Sixers, this is a team that was a couple of bounces away from advancing. And did you watch any of their run? And now that you're there, envision yourself of, man, could you imagine if I was a part of that, how I could have potentially helped, especially the way that shot falls down?
Yeah. No, I mean, I watched the whole thing. It was cool to try and envision myself on that court, and I felt like there would be no problem with me just fitting right in. And yeah, like you said, that was a tough shot to watch fall. But as much as it hurts, it's always an interesting feeling. It's a different feeling when you lose to the team that ends up winning it all, and to be that close just goes to show that, I mean, Philly's going to be a contender. There's going to be a serious conversation for them next year in the finals.
Yes, and I know that all starts soon. We'll see where your path takes you, whether it be Summer League and what else is next for Matisse Thybulle as camp gets here. It all happens fast. I know it's happening fast for you, but we do appreciate you slowing it down a little bit and catching up with us here on the Sports Bash. Matisse Thybulle, everybody, thank you so much, pal.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that is Matisse Thybulle, the Sixers' first pick, number 20 overall. They made a trade with Boston to get there, and he was kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.